Okay, welcome to our next episode of Off the Top. This is our career perspective series, and we have with us today a very amazing person, Miss Rosie Omino-Hayes. And she has a really cool title. I'm going to let her tell you what the title is, but I would just say that we've been working together for about a year now, and she does such amazing things to help entrepreneurs and nonprofits. It's just so incredible, so incredible. So let's get to it. Okay. How you doing, Miss Rosie?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. So I'll let you go ahead and spend some time and just introduce yourself.
Well, as you said, my name is Rosie Omino-Hayes. Yeah, a lot, but I own both of those names. So um, I am an online business strategist. I do a lot of web design as well. And this is kind of a career I fell into, but have always been attracted to. So I guess I was always on the path to it. I just may have taken some, detours along the way, but I think a lot of those detours have helped me become a better strategist a lot. So yeah, that's where I am. That's who I am.
That's cool. And you say business, online business strategist. What makes that unique for you?
I think the perspective I come from, I initially started in this business as a coach, and that was my online business. And this was many, many years ago before coaching was actually as popular as it is now. I'm sure at the time, and at the time, I also thought it was pretty popular, but it wasn't as big as it was going to get. And in the process of doing so, I started off not necessarily having a ton of money. And so I had to learn to do a lot of things myself. And one of those
Mhm.
things was creating a website and then learning how to put myself out there in the sea of many other people and trying to make myself stand out. And then learning what that meant being online, because in person, you kind of get to talk to people, you get to meet them, they get to meet you, and you kind of click in personalities sometimes. And that may be enough for someone to do business with you. Online, they have to find you and get your personality
Mhm.
from text. So trying to figure out how to make that personal, but without being too I, because no one really came on there to hear too much about yourself. They also want to know what they're going to, and that was another thing, figuring
Mhm.
out how you present it without talking about yourself. So there was just so many things along the way, learning to put out my business that taught me that actually I was more interested in learning to put out other people's businesses than I was in putting out my own business. So that became how I transitioned towards being an online strategist and a web designer, because that felt more comfortable to me than the actual just straight coaching.
Oh man, I'm going to love this interview because already you're saying some really, really rich things that kids needs to hear. And what I heard you say was you're a people person
Yeah,
and you have a strength as a communicator, being able to
yeah,
articulate what you do and how you do it
yeah.
in a way that make people, comfortable and being able to, grasp what you do and be wanting to go into business with you.
Right, and be comfortable in the path that they're taking as well, knowing that as overwhelmed as they might feel when they come to me, by the time we're done, they kind of feel a certain sense of, okay, it's big, but I'm relieved. I feel like I've got the right person working with me, and that's important because the relationship is what makes this structure work. If
Mm.
if I don't get along with them and they don't get along with me, it doesn't matter how great my advice is, they will never take it in the context that it's given. So it's relationship building.
Wonderful relationship
Yeah,
building.
yeah,
I love that. That's a key component
yes,
and uh, relationships, period, but in particular in the business world. And as an entrepreneur, you can almost, live and die on your ability to
yes,
build relationships and maintain
yes.
relationships.
Yes, absolutely. It's all networking is strictly that. It's building relationships that are hopefully beneficial to you both. And when you are building a relationship, you are looking to help the other person, and of
Mhm.
course help yourself, because that's the purpose of your business, is to help your business grow. But not just help your business grow, help the other person with something that's valuable to them, and that exchange is what makes businesses grow.
That's wonderful. And one of the things that we're going to do at Ebony Tree Council with our Prep Academy is teach young people those types of skills. And we call it our personal development segment, where we learn how to relationship build, we learn how to communicate, and we learn how to be comfortable sharing part of yourself so that you can get to know other people. So that's amazing, amazing.
And share it in a way that truly expresses the value that you're bringing, and not being embarrassed about. Literally, at some point, you have to, at some point, actually brag about yourself, but in a way that's not obnoxious, but just allowing the other person to see that you're not coming from a place of no knowledge or no skill. So being able to balance between telling people who you are in a value driven way, and but not being braggy. There's so much, especially when you're online, because a lot of times you're not having the benefit of a face-to-face where someone can see sincerity in your face. So your words
Mhm.
have to be very carefully written and thought out.
Yeah, that's so rich. Being able to articulate your values, because a lot of time our young kids don't get the understanding of knowing their worth and knowing their values. So they devalue themselves when they go into a situation where it's high school or college or whatever, and having those skills and importance. I guess it comes from, I don't know, learning to be comfortable with yourself and learning,
It's language. It's being told to stop
yes,
bragging when you say, I did really well. And people say, stop saying that. Well, if you did, you should be allowed to say you did well, because, well, heck, you did.
yeah,
But it's language. It's being taught the nuances of language, and the difference between saying I'm the greatest, which again should not be a bad thing to say if it's what you need to tell yourself to move forward, then say you're the greatest. Look, Muhammad Ali said all the time he was the greatest. No one ever got mad at him for calling
mhm,
himself the greatest. But again, he worked hard to become the greatest as well, even not just saying it, but then went forward to live it as in what he did. So there's a balance. And so knowing your values, also again, look, pricing is another place where you have to figure out your value. Do you charge for everything? And when you do, how much do you charge?
mhm.
Is it really expressing what you're supposed to charge, or are you just trying not to to hit people's pockets? Why should you care? Again, it's no, it's like those are all
Yeah.
questions you have to ask yourself.
Mhm.
Should I care how much they're willing to pay, or should I care about how much I'm giving them? And therefore, they should be willing to pay this, regardless of what they have in their pocket. Is not my issue. It's how much value am I giving for the price I'm setting?
That's wonderful. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
So how did you learn to be able to do the things that you do as a strategist?
I made mistakes. I made a ton of mistakes. I spent
Mhm,
money in places that I probably shouldn't have.
mhm,
But the thing was, I was always open to learning. It was all, again, when I say shouldn't have, again, I don't think there's a shouldn't really, because everything I learned was a lesson, whether it was about don't spend money like that. That
mhm.
was the lesson, or something I gained from that was a lesson. But at the end of the day, it was curiosity, research, not accepting one answer, looking for things to back that answer up, or to question that answer. So it's my curiosity, I think, that really drove me to being in that place where there were so many things that I found that I knew that a lot of people didn't, but I knew them because I had been curious the whole time. I've always
Right,
been curious. So
right.
when I would say things like it was, why wouldn't you know that? And people go, that's amazing. And that's what drove me to it. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize that was amazing information. I thought that was just common knowledge. Okay.
Nice.
I have a nugget here. And it was also loving doing it and knowing that I was willing to do that no matter what. Even if people weren't paying me, I'd still share that knowledge. I'd still research that stuff because I loved knowing that stuff. And then I loved sharing it and seeing people's eyes pop. So that's how I knew that was my thing.
That's so great. That's great. And
Yeah.
the entrepreneur's journey is a little bit different from going into the career force in a traditional sort of way. Because you have, some people go to college or the trade schools or technical schools, but you have to kind of determine, where your niche is, and then cobble together the skills you have to have, and then go out and learn those skills in the best way you know how, and with the budget that you have. So
Right.
that's
And be
really,
willing to
really,
pivot when you suddenly realize that maybe the thing you thought was your passion ends up being your hate when you're doing it for money. That you dislike doing it more because now you're being forced to systematize something that
hmm
you loved just doing free and open. It's like the whole thing, turn a hobby into, I don't know what's agree with that. One of my hobbies was sewing. I hated doing that as a business. So again, again, sometimes you have to really work your way through. And as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to understand that some of it is really switching gears a lot.
yeah.
And you might switch a lot of gears before you find that place that's yours. And as long as you know that, you won't see it as giving up or quitting or whatever, but you also have to give everything its fair opportunity and know why you're stopping, not because you don't think you can do it anymore, but stop because it's just not you anymore.
hmm
Because if someone out there is doing it, trust me, you could do it too. So
Yes.
I just can't,
Yes.
it's, no.
And
It's usually just because you're not passionate enough about it. Your fear of it is higher than your faith in it.
oh yeah, I really love that. One thing that I've learned too is that, nothing that we experience along our journey goes to waste.
Right.
So even if we pick up something and decide later on to pivot, that being able to use that somewhere else along the way will have some value, will
Right.
have some kind of impact on what you're doing somewhere along the way. So nothing's really wasted.
Even if nothing else, just to learn that that's not your thing.
Yes.
Again,
Yes.
people underestimate that as a lesson. The sooner you find out that that's not your thing, the sooner you can move on to what is your thing. So finding out that something's not your thing is a good lesson, because now you can drop it and not. And when I say that, I it really sounds kind of like casual, but it's really not that casual, because it's a process between the drop and then moving on. There's a pivot point where you question whether or not you should be pivoting, or if you've given it enough time, and so there's a process. But honestly, knowing first what you're good at, what you love, what you're passionate about, what you're willing to do with or without pay, what you dream about, what you wake up just smiling about, where you can write notes forever or type, talk, whatever they do these days. I'm still a shorthand writing person. So I'll say write notes, because that's what I still do.
hmm
Wake up in the middle of the night with a notebook next to you, and you're like, wow, and then go back to, so that thing. But sometimes even that can change. And again, like you said, none of it is wasted. You're still just undergoing a process. It could be learning a specific skill, and not
hmm
necessarily to be used in this particular business, but to be used in another one. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So how long have you been an online business strategist?
I have been doing this for probably 14, 13, 14 weeks, probably.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, when I first started, it was trying to figure out how to get, like I said, this was when I was sewing for a living. And I had just had my son, and I didn't want to leave the house. And not a fear thing, but I wanted to be there with my son.
Right.
So I had been sewing and working at a store before that. And so he started bringing me work to do at home. And then I started trying to figure out, okay, how can I get other clients, And so it was trying to figure out, do I set myself up online, or do I just look, so it was that. Now, how do I find clients online? Because I'm not traipsing all around town looking for people who would like me to sew for them. So then I had to, again, it was trying to be creative in my process of trying to build my business that took me in that direction. So at the
Wonderful.
time, also Craigslist was huge. So going
Yes, yes.
and back pages from
Back pages. All right.
yeah, that was still alive. Yeah, it hadn't been shut down by the
Oh
feds.
no, we're dating
So,
ourselves, but that's okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
MySpace.
MySpace. Oh my. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so all that was still there. So I had to figure out how to create, how to bring business to me and find business uh,
hmm
without money to place ads to say, I sew and please come find me. And it had to be under the same circumstances that I was willing to sew in, which was in my house and bring me the stuff and all, so I had some serious criteria. So I had to get creative. So it started there. I didn't know at the time that's what I was doing. At the time, I just thought I was trying to find some work, something to do to make some money.
Well, I tell you, just having experience working with you, your depth of knowledge and the range of what you bring to someone trying to launch their own business is incredible. And personally, I have benefited tremendously from being able to work with you, and I truly, truly have appreciated your skills that you bring. So tell us, what's a typical day like for you?
Okay. It depends. If I don't have clients that I need to speak to, I'm usually either building a site, looking for software, trying to figure out software that I've purchased and or in beta testing for. So I'm constantly either honing my skills, working on something, and or finding something new to play with. And usually the new to play with is like new software and tools and stuff that I can use with my clients to help them. Because a lot of the people I work with tend to be solo entrepreneurs. And trying to do, there's so many hats you have to wear. There's so many things you have to do. And I think a lot of them don't realize it. They think, oh, being online, it cuts down half of what I have to do. It's like, no, the only thing it takes out is physical building. And then you have to do all the other stuff, but now you're doing it online. And they're like, well, like what? And I said, okay, so, you start on the things like, oh, okay, you've got to create your email list and you're going to have to do this and there's this marketing. And then all of a sudden this happens. And I can see this look of sheer dread, like across their face where they're like, I thought this was going to lift me up and I was supposed to be super excited. But then, we go through the process and I go, okay, yeah, but at the end of the day, we have things that can help you do a lot of that stuff. The hard part is setting it all up. Once it's all set up, it's like systems. They'll work on their own. They may need some tweaking and you may need to update stuff, but you can do this. You just have to be prepared for the volume of work at the beginning. And just knowing that there is a lot. It's not this 30 minutes to success that people try and tell you it is. It's not 1 hour and your site's going to be up. Just like that.
Yeah, instant gratification is overrated.
And not just that, but you can get a website up in 30 minutes to an hour. You can. Content is
Content.
not. Content is the beast of a website. The design, honestly, people will forgive design and stuff like that all day long if your content is like dynamic. But guess what? Writing content is hard.
Yes.
And if you can't do it, paying someone is expensive.
Absolutely.
So yeah, getting up a site when I see all these things online and I see people saying, oh, you can get a site up in 1 hour. I'm going, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. You can put up a theme. In fact, I can do it in less than 10 minutes. I can get your WordPress and a theme up. But now it's just a shell with colors and Latin. Good luck. And then they don't understand too that putting it up there doesn't mean that people are coming. If you build it, they won't necessarily come.
They won't come. That's true. So one thing I really got from what you were saying too is that you have to develop a lot of patience in dealing with and educating potential clients, because you're helping them count the cost of what it really looks like to run a business. And you said something earlier.
Time costs, not just money, right? Because I tell you, you either have to have the money to pay someone to do it for you, or you have to have the time.
And I heard you say something else earlier about being able to help people systematize.
Yes, that's definitely a big thing, because tools, systems, teams. Those are things that I think. those are three things that I know that if you're a solo entrepreneur, if you haven't figured out all three of those things, you're going to struggle a lot. You're going to really struggle a lot, because, and by teams, they don't have to be people who are working for you all the time. It could be contractors who you just call every once in a while, but you'll need people. You'll need tools being things like, could be simple tools, things like MailChimp or MailerLite, something to send out your email so you're not manually sending. And, because Google won't let you send more than, I think it's 10 or 15 in one email before they start sniffing around your mailbox, knowing is he spamming people. So again, and a lot of people don't know that. So, they have Gmails and they go, no, I'll just use my Gmail. I was like, okay, first of all, let me just say this. I will work with anybody, but the minute I come to your site, if your email address is Gmail or Yahoo or whatever, I'm out.
Yeah, and that's very important. Yes, that's very important. It lets people know how serious you are about what you're doing as a business owner.
That right there. That right there. It's like, you have to know that getting an email address is truly not a huge expense, and it's not an expense that you can afford to not spend. And again, if you get the right people, and this is where the teams come in. If you get the right teams, they'll direct you to the right hosting company and all of that, where you can get free emails with your domain name for free. And some of them are unlimited, and some may be as many as 10, but who needs 10 email accounts?
That's right.
Especially if you're a solo entrepreneur, you're going to have to check all of them. So, yeah, 10 is too many. But yeah, so there's just systems, again, when you have the right teams around you, you get shortcuts. I've always told people, I said, you don't use contractors just for their skill. Sometimes it's their connections. And so that's a big part of what you're getting with them too. And then there's freebies that they might throw in that you might not even have thought about, that you go, oh, hey, I didn't even know I needed that, but now that you put it in there, thank you so much. So yeah. Systems are important too, because you really cannot, even if you're not online, you have systems, you have protocols, you have, it helps you transition from, let's say, one employee to another. If you don't have, your standard operating procedures, how do you then, what does the old employee have to train the new one? What if they quit in the middle of the night? Do you have to then come back in and teach them all this new stuff? And then maybe that the old employee was doing a bunch of stuff that you did, it's just systems. Again, if you're going to grow into a big business, you have to have systems that you can pass on to other people to take over for you. And it can't be just in your head.
Yeah, and yet that's another portion of the cost that you just mentioned right there, is being able to understand the risk and having contingencies for those risks. Right. So that is another thing that a lot of people that delve into the entrepreneurial world kind of overlook, because they're seeing the benefits of a fully realized business, instead of a business that's growing. Right. And being able to understand those risks are super critical in towards your success.
And it's just because a lot of the people who are selling these business ideas are really good at marketing, and so they sell you the finished product, and that's really, again, that's their job. But a lot of people don't realize that the finished product may have taken years and will probably take you a while, and or a chunk of money to expedite some of those processes. But yeah, and also if you're looking at someone who's been doing it for a while and it looks really easy for them. I've always said that the talented people make things look really easy. It's like when you watch people on YouTube sometimes, they make things look so simple, but that's because they're so talented, and or they're good at editing. So they can edit things really well, so the things look super simple. But when you go and do it in reality, you're like, oh wait, they did show me this part. What did they do here? What happens here? What's going on there? I didn't see that on this, so you have to be really, and that's why I said I have to be diligent when I do my research. I have to research more than one place, and it's not just YouTube, and it's not just one thing on Google that shows up on the top. Sometimes I'll go to the last page of Google to see what random thing is going to show up back there, but sometimes it's those randoms that end up being some really good information. It's just that guy just doesn't know how to optimize their site.
Yeah, that's a really interesting research strategy, because most people try to optimize to be at the top of the list, but there's some real gold at the bottom of that search there that people might overlook because they don't have the patience to really dig into that.
Because these guys are just full of really good information, and they basically just onto a website. They just mind dumped onto a website and didn't think of anything but just, I can't wait to share all this, and so they just mind dumped it and didn't, there's no SEO, there's no keywords, there's nothing, nothing. And it's like chapters this long, nothing. They were just like a lot of info. And for me, I don't mind. I grew up old school, reading a lot of stuff. So I don't mind going to a page that's all words.
Yeah,
Whereas most people
reading
are
is
like, oh,
fundamental.
hello. Whereas a lot of people go and see all those words and they're like, oh, my head goes fuzzy, all those words. And I'm like, oh, my head goes, woo, now
Yeah,
words. Let's see what
yeah.
they got. So yeah,
And you,
I sometimes go to the back pages because you never know.
and you said something that I wanted to really take a pause and highlight for our young people too, when it comes to social media, YouTube, and things like that. Some of the content that we see looks organic, but in reality, is highly, highly polished marketing.
Yes.
And so a lot of our kids are deceived and tricked into looking at something that looks like it's natural and off the cuff, whereas in reality, the people really, really have honed their marketing skills to make it look natural when it's
Right.
highly polished.
They've got videographers there. They've got,
Yes.
lights. They've got all kinds of wonderful things going on that you don't see. But then they try and act like it's just us casually sitting on the couch chit chatting. No, it's not.
Yeah, no, it's not really.
No, it's not.
So,
But
Rosie, what is it that you look forward to every day? What do you love about what you're doing?
I love uh, opening someone's eyes up to a new concept, or they've come to me and they're just dejected about where their business is and what's going on, and being able to turn that switch for them where they suddenly see such great potential in the business that they had almost given up on. So those are the kind of moments that I really, really look forward to. And then also being creative, just being able to just do something creative and do a site and have the client look and go, wow, so, and not for the wow part, but just being able to exercise some of my creative spirit. Because I think there's two parts to me. I'm the logical person who loves the research and the fundamentals and stats and things like that. And then there's the creative side for me. So that's where I guess the website and strategy come into play as combined. It's my personality. I like super creative things. And then I also like logic. So the strategy is about logic. It's like, what makes sense? Make it make sense. That's one of my favorite phrases. Make it make sense. And usually with most marketing and online stuff, it does make sense because when you look at why most people haven't succeeded, let's say, in what they're doing, is that they don't know who they're trying to sell to, or they're selling to the wrong people, or so there's sometimes just really little things like that. And trying to get people to, let's say, narrow down their market to a specific client is always one of the hardest things to do with people who are starting out, because their idea is that if I can market to 70 billion people, it's so much better than if I only market to 7,000 people. But they don't understand is that those 7,000 people really, really want what you have.
Yes.
7 billion, on the other hand, don't care one patunky about what it is you're selling, but that 7,000 and that 7 billion people really want it. And not only will they buy it, they'll come back and buy whatever else you have. So focus on that 7,000, but they don't, it's so hard to make them see that as where they should be heading. And so getting someone to, like I said, to turn that switch is always one of my favorite parts of the day. And like I said, I'm being creative.
Yeah,
I mean, that's of
instinctively.
course aside from being a mother, but
I love it because like you said, instinctively in your brain, it's kind of an oxymoron to narrow your focus as opposed to trying to cast a wide net. But as you're saying, the difference is when you get to a niche, those are the people that need your message. It's going to resonate with them, and those are the folks that's going to seek out your service.
Right. Over and over again, and will be willing to pay whatever it is you're asking. And whenever you have something coming, they'll be asking you, when's the next thing coming out? We're so excited. So it's getting people to understand the nuances. And they're like, well, I want to be like Amazon. I said, but guess what? Jeff Bezos started off selling books.
Yes.
That's it. And then he grew. So I'm telling you, find your book or your books or whatever it is. And then you can grow into the guy who sells everything. I said, because again, when you specialize, you can also become a boutique where you can sell it at a highest price, or you can become Walmart and sell it at a low price to everybody. But do you really want to become the Walmart of your business? And sorry, Walmart, nothing against you per se. This is not a dig, but I'm just saying, that's also a specialty in itself. But you're basically saying, low cost goods for the masses. Is that what you are? And if that's what you are, then sure, let's work that. But most people, most people are not trying to say that they're low cost goods for the masses. So they usually end up like, oh, okay, I see your point. Like that's the guy who can, you can mass market if you're going to be a low cost good that covers everybody's everything. But there is no such thing really. Even Walmart doesn't have everything.
And that's really important because you talked earlier about having solo entrepreneurs kind of maximize their investment in their business, and trying to cast a broad net and catch everybody is not the best use of how you invest your money. It's coming down to the fine point to where your dollars are working for you specifically in the area that you know is going to give you the best kind of return. And that's important.
For example, like with a Facebook ad, if you go with a Facebook ad that's trying to hit 10 million people, you're going to pay more per click because most of those 10 million are probably not your market. Whereas if you narrow the niche down to, let's say, women over 35 who live in the US who have an income over this much, and it's only like 300,000 people, you're probably going to pay a lot less per click because you've narrowed it down to a more focused clientele who are more likely interested, again, depending on the product or service, who are more likely interested in what it is you have. So it's just about knowing that, hey, if you're going to spend money on ads, for example, know exactly who you want to speak to, and then make sure that that message speaks to that person. It's that whole create your client avatar. That's another thing that's such a struggle for people too, because again, it's picking a specific person that you're going to talk to, and again, it's like you said, counterintuitive to most people who are thinking, no, I'm talking to Bill, Bob, John, Jane, Susan, and her uncle and auntie and their children and everybody. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. Especially not in this day and age. I mean, because honestly, right now there's like about, I think it's like something like 350,000 new websites a day.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, a day.
Day.
Yeah, so that's a lot of websites. And not all of them are set out to sell anything, but that's still a lot of footwork for, let's say, a Google spider to figure out who you are. You better be really specific because, again, like if you go into Google, you can search like literally the most ridiculous phrase. And the funny thing is, there'll be a site that's actually got the exact phrase.
Nobody's thought about it. Yeah.
and you're like, oh. And so that's the whole point, is that Google's trying to make it where if you have a business that's very specialized, when people ask very specialized questions, they know to send them to you because you really do cover this topic in multiple ways. And so that's what makes you the expert in that. That's why you can see sometimes people have ads, but a site that doesn't even have an ad will hit the top. Why? Because they're more specific to this than even the ad, because the ad's paying to be up top. This guy has just got the information that makes them sit up top.
Wow. So Rosie, it's always a blessing to be able to meet somebody who's been able to take the things that they really love to do and use them in their passion or their calling. And I know with your creativity, you've been able to take that and merge it into your passion of helping people, particularly online business owners, the new ones, realize their potential and realize what they're going through. And so, it's really a blessing to be able to meet people that are able to merge that. But it's not an easy journey to get to the point where you merge those two.
No, I'm in my mid-50s. So it took me a while. And when I say I've been doing this for 10 or 15 years, it wasn't all, I did start where I am today. I started off, like I said, sewing and trying to figure things out from there. And I'm a long way from that, but that's the beginning of that journey. It took a lot of meandering to get to where I am today, but I was open to the path and the journey. The goal of being a business owner never changed. The plans and the actions and the steps also, yes, those change, but like do it scared, do it, get it done, figure it out. Those things never changed. But maybe the path I was actually going on changed multiple times. And I'm even open to it changing again if that's where the journey goes. It's just that it's not an end, it's not like a position that you say, okay, reached. It's a continuous thing, It's a continuous thing. It never stops. But again,
Absolutely.
that's because I love what I'm doing and I believe that there's still so much that I don't know. So I'm always learning and I'm forever learning. And even things that I was never interested in before have now become things that I can start to wrap my head around because
Beautiful.
I love the idea of growing too. So
Beautiful. So I'm going to switch to asking something a little bit more personal now. So because the kids that we're looking to focus on are between the ages
okay.
and 15. So what we like to ask our guests is, uh, you choose 15-year-old self or your 22-year-old self. What would you say to that person that you were back then?
My 15-year-old self did not have ears. So I will not be talking to her. She did not have ears, or they were just channels that went through and through. So yeah, we don't talk to her. So my 20-something-year-old self, what would I say to her? Trust your instincts. Learn to trust yourself more.
Mhm,
Uh, learn who you are and get comfortable in your skin sooner
mhm,
rather than later. And I don't know. Those are truly probably the main things would be just really just learn yourself, get comfortable with you, learn to stand your ground when even if you're standing it alone, you're not alone. It just feels like that, So
mhm,
just a lot, in this path, there's so many things that I stepped back from or that took me longer than they should have because I didn't trust myself and I didn't trust my
mm,
instincts and I didn't trust my thought process. So, like I said, that 15-year journey has been a lot of things. And part of that was my upbringing. And I don't like parent blaming because I think that's a foolish thing when you're grown. But
right.
I was raised to do what I was told not to think for myself.
Mhm,
So when the time came to start trying to think for myself, and that's what I'm saying, I tell my 22-year-old self, learn to trust what you think and learn to think for yourself and learn to trust that even if you make a mistake, mistakes are fine. You know,
mhm.
as long as you're learning from them, mistakes are just fine.
Well, that's very important because when kids are growing up, sometimes as parents, we tend to try to set boundaries, with good intentions
Right,
that kind of limit the child's ability to grow
right,
and explore into who they're going to be. So it takes them a
right.
little longer to get to that stage where they are comfortable in their own skin. And so, yeah, that's
Hmm.
very important.
Well, because we have big dreams for them, we forget that they might have
Yeah.
dreams for themselves. And so we kind of think maybe your dream's not big enough. It needs my input. And so we look, I have a 15-year-old, so I know this. And
Mhm.
even just being protective of them, sometimes we need to let them fall where they fall and then be there to pick them up and not stop them from falling, because in some of my falling, I have learned a lot. But
Yes.
at 15, I wasn't allowed to fall. I was
Mhm.
there was first I wasn't making decisions for myself, let alone falling on a decision that I made.
And there's a quote that I learned from a psychiatrist, I think it was Young, who said that the most damning thing in a child is the unrealized dreams of a parent.
Mm,
And so that kind of puts that
mm,
into perspective.
sure does. It sure does. Because we feel like they've let us down when they're not living up to what we thought they should. Not because
Exactly.
they're not living up to life. They're just not doing what we believe they should have, where we should be saying, you know what, I'm open to whoever you get to be because I know I'm giving you the foundation that you need to become a good human being. You may not end up being the rocket scientist, but that's fine.
That's right.
Why do we believe that only this, and this make you a valuable human being in society?
Yes. Yes. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with the young people that's going to be listening to us today?
Yes, do whatever you're doing, do it at 100%. So whatever you do, give it your all so that when you do walk away or finish or whatever, there's no better outcome that could have come from that situation. Because there's
Mhm,
nothing worse than regret of what if I had
mhm.
just applied myself a little more? What if I had, the what ifs will kick you more than the I did it and it didn't work. Trust me on that
Nice.
one.
Nice. Wonderful. And so now we're coming to the last little bit of our interview here. And we like to ask at least one introspective kind of question to close
Uh-oh.
out with. And I'm going to give you the floor on this one.
This
And
is
so
also kind of dangerous territory, I've told you.
that's okay. I'm here for it. We're here for it, right?
Okay.
So here's the setup. And so for you, it's you and your business, and you're 5 years from now, and you've achieved all the goals you have for yourself 5 years from now.
Yes.
What habits did you embrace to get to those goals?
I embraced making the most of the time I was working and not being stuck on what time it was. I embraced learning what my weaknesses were and working around them and finding people and or tools and or systems to plug in those holes. I learned to be flexible enough to pivot when needed. Like when Corona hit, a lot of people were stuck and they didn't know how to take what they had into what was going on. So being flexible enough that if things change on the drop of a hat, can you switch gears and still be good? So I did that. I was able to know that no matter what you're doing today, just be flexible enough to say that this is not the only way, because things could change and you might have to find another way. And so that I embraced flexibility. I embraced knowing who I was and knowing where I needed help and being open to that help. That's a hard one.
Yeah.
That's my Achilles heel, I'll tell you that. So yeah, getting help when I needed it, knowing when I needed the help, and then getting the right people around me to support me in terms of family, friends, found family, found friends, whatever. It doesn't have to be your biologicals. And also knowing that sometimes your family may not be the most supportive. It doesn't mean that they don't mean well. They just don't know.
Amen for that.
They just don't know. They don't have to. Sometimes they may not purchase from you, and that's fine because they're not your ideal client. That's fine too, and they may go to somebody else to get exactly what you have, but that's okay. So it's just being able to say, embrace who you are, and then make that work for you. Know what your strengths are and make those work really well for you. And then again, like I said, weaknesses are not necessarily negative things. They're just things that you need to get somebody else to do. Like Ford didn't build a car. He just got really good engineers to do it for him.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to the amazing Miss Rosie Omino-Hayes, outstanding and phenomenal online business strategist, and somebody who you really want to get to know. Thank you so much for your time today, and we have had a pleasure talking to you on Off the Top.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.